So my name is Luna Mohammed. I am an emergency manager with Cadre. Uh, this meeting, welcome everyone. The goal of this meeting is really to have initial discussion with organizations in Santa Clara County who are part of the food system so that we are best able to work together to provide disaster food relief in the event of a major emergency. So this is going to be more of a discussion or a meeting than it is going to be a webinar or training, but I'll start with a few things to discuss with everyone, and then we'll open it up for kind of a roundtable discussion. And again, our purpose is collaboration. It's getting us together so that we are best able to work together and be as efficient and effective as possible in serving our community.
Before she is an emergency manager that was in Monterey County for several years, and now she lives in Los Angeles, and we have been fortunate enough to have her work with us on our training now. So thank you, Luna, for being here. Thank you all for being here, and I'll turn it back to you.
Thanks so much, Marcia. So just walking through kind of the outline for today's meeting. Our initial discussion will start with exploring NGOs, non-governmental organization roles in disaster food relief. We'll then start talking about challenges and capabilities for disaster food relief and ways that we can expand collaboration and coordination, including a food function team and some mapping resources that tie back to the questionnaire you all received at the beginning at the registration when you got the email for registration for this meeting. Again, this is going to be, I'll start with some brief discussion and then I'll start with some brief information and then we'll open it up for discussion so that this really is a meeting to help us collaborate and start building that network or expand and foster a network for food disaster relief. Does anyone have any questions or comments before we get started? So before we do that, just a little on our organization. So Cadre, our mission is to support the disaster response and recovery efforts of the entire Santa Clara County. We do focus with non-governmental organizations because government does have their own structures for this, but we work very closely with government because the only way that this works is if we're working all together from all sectors, both governmental, non-governmental, public, and private. We do this through collaborative partnerships, through documentation, including some of that great material Marcia shared with you, and through education. One of the key things that we have been working on and trying to develop and strengthen are our cadre function teams. And really the point of these function teams are to provide us a way for us to communicate amongst smaller sectors of our larger disaster response and recovery efforts in the county so that we can coordinate before, during, and after a disaster. So here are a few of the ones that we have been working on. Our access and functional needs function team is more fleshed out. The food sourcing and distribution function team, which is part of the reason we're discussing today, is something that we are trying to flesh out better and further solidify so that it's something useful, a group that you can go to before disasters to prepare, during disasters to find information and resources, and after to support recovery. So our vision for disaster food relief is creating a network where organizations build upon each other's capabilities in order to continue and or expand services during disasters, and to do this in a way that provides food that meets the whole community's dietary and cultural needs and keeps everyone in mind. Specifically, how we are trying to help is four-pronged. First, coordination. We gather helpful data, information, resources. We do this through secondary research, pulling plans and reports throughout the county, throughout the region, to try to better understand our food disaster relief landscape. Through surveys like the questionnaire we shared with you upon registration, and through meetings like this and our function meetings and just the meetings we have in general, including like the cold weather meeting, that check in to help us best coordinate ourselves during anticipated disaster or just in general. So some examples of that. We found some great work that Santa Clara University and Unbox did this last year in 2023 on food assistance landscape. And this was a 3-year youth-led food and security project. It did kind of flesh out where our food assistance is coming from in Santa Clara County, with the majority, about 60%, coming from public assistance, largely from SNAP or food stamps is how it's also known. 40% come from private agencies. That includes like the Second Harvest Silicon Valley is a huge portion of that food assistance coming from the private agencies. And then there's a group, food from other sources. So this group in our meetings and part of our purpose is try to help flesh out who those are and try to make sure that we are all as connected and intertwined with one another so we can support each other during disasters as possible. There's, aside from this data, we had spoken with Casey from the county who shared with us a work plan, a food systems work plan for the county of Santa Clara that was developed in 2021. Just some things that I would like to highlight from that as well. It noted the data was pulled from several years, so it was like from 2020 through like 2018 through like 2021. Some of the information that's really keen and useful for this group: 4,773 businesses in the county were related to agricultural production, support, food processing, or in the distribution sectors of food. There were in 2020, 539 permits for restaurants. Some of those were temporarily closed, so 6.2% temporarily closed because of COVID, and then another 5.4% permanently closed because of COVID. So just kind of pointing out some of the impacts that disasters can have on our food systems. 694 mobile food facilities were permitted in the county of Santa Clara. 146 cottage food operations. Those are like where someone pre-makes the food and sells to a consumer. 586 food processors and manufacturers, and 890 farms. So these numbers are really telling to how large our food system is in Santa Clara County, not even including regional partners outside of the county who we work with. And this doesn't also keep in mind the important players like homeless shelters, commercial kitchens, faith-based organizations, some food delivery organizations, recycling orgs like food compost organizations that also are part of that food system. So our food system, the point there is our food system is huge, and trying to gather this information and best understand some of this really great work that's already been done, kind of using it to help propel us in forming and fostering our network. So our second prong of our work is communication. We don't just gather this information, just as I just did. We try to share it, make it as accessible, as useful, as simplified. That air quality website is another great example. We have that whole preparedness website. You open the little drop down for air quality, and you have a one-stop shop of resources so that you're not having to search for it all in a million different places. So that's another thing we try to do, and we do that through email blasts, through maps, outreach material, and through meetings like this where we try to communicate in simple forms all of this great information that is being gathered from different organizations throughout our county. And another example of that, and this is a mock map. I'm gonna go ahead and open the map real quick so I'm gonna swap this. So looking at the actual map, this is a mock map again. Our goal is to have a more fleshed out community resource map of all of these different resources in the county. But just to give you a very, very quick example of it, the yellow checks are registrants for this meeting. The little fork and spoon in that darker orange are our function team distribution list. So the people that we reach out to related to food organizations. So that's just two examples, but a larger map would have a lot of different information. a way larger set of resources, kind of mapping out a lot of those different organizations. And then along with that, it would be able to take some of the data from a disaster. So say we have an earthquake or a wildfire or a flood and kind of see where those impacts are so we can best understand both the needs and what we still have capabilities to do so that we can best coordinate with one another. So,
And Luna, this is Marcia. We have a grant to create a GIS map of everyone, though, anyone that's providing support to the unhoused, anyone that's providing groceries or meals. And so gathering all that from the faith community and the unhoused support organizations, it's going to take a while. But the other thing that it does do is if we have a big earthquake or a flood, we'll be able to see immediately which of the providers have been impacted. And then when we get together to talk, we can see how we can fill in those gaps.
absolutely. Thank you for that, Marcia. So along with that, that's kind of alluding to the next thing that we do, which is collaboration, pulling our groups together, pulling these resources, this information together to help foster partnerships. The function team will be a large part of that, but there's a lot of other things we can and do to support, including helping with like regional and county plan development. Along with in 2021, we did a symposium related to food, and what we found was that need for collaboration is ever present, and that there are several gaps in the food system that we can help bridge and help reduce using these types of networks and this type of partnership, which I'll get into in a little later in this discussion. So that's the next thing. But aside from gathering the information, sharing it, having a forum for us to partner and work together, cooperation's another key thing we do. Developing and hosting trainings and exercises. It's not just that we know what to do, we know who to contact. It's that we've tested this and we've tried it so we can work effectively and cohesively together. And also even just the psychological readiness of it. When we've practiced, we're better able to do, and we're less likely to personally also negatively be impacted by a disastrous impacts. So I'm going to pause right now before we get into some of that disaster food relief discussion. Does anyone have comments, questions, concerns before we start delving into disaster food relief?
No, I have a quick question, comment. So specific to you said there are, I think Marcia said you have a grant to work on a mapping project. And so this is more of you can talk more offline, but comment, I've come to learn that there are a number of different mapping projects happening that bring like food recovery organizations, others that are showing farmer connections. So I'd love to talk more about how we might connect some of those mapping efforts so that these layers can talk to each other a little bit more.
Yes,
that sounds like a
absolutely.
great project.
And this is Marcia, and that's great. And that's one of the reason that we have these big calls. It's like we know what we know, but then we don't know what everyone else is doing. And there's so much good work. So this helps us make sure that we are collaborating.
That's great. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you, Casey. And yes, we'll definitely loop you in, and anyone else who would like to be looped into that. Definitely need to work together on all of this so that we don't repeat efforts and that we're being as efficient with how we do this as possible. So absolutely, thank you for that. Any other comments, questions before we start talking about disaster food relief? All right, so just briefly, kind of want to go really quickly through some of the roles that non-governmental organizations have when we're talking about disasters and food relief. So the NGOs can provide commercial kitchens, cooking facilities for food preparation. They can provide dining or food distribution spaces, meal delivery, food supply like grocery stores, community gardens, farms. secure food storage facilities and or equipment, so generators, refrigerators or refrigeration areas, things like that to keep the food good and hold it in a safe and secure place. Food disposal and recycling, kind of a pitch to SB 1383, which requires grocery stores to turn over expiring food. Having that streamlined for food disposal and recycling is really key for that, but also during disasters and especially right after when people come home and everything in their fridge is bad, it can be a public health issue if we don't properly engage for food disposal and recycling as well. Volunteers and staff to do all of these different roles and tasks, and food donation management. So specifically like non-perishable food donation, water, things like that. So these are just some of the roles for disaster food relief. And at this point, I would like to start the roundtable. It looks like we have 21 people. In the interest of time, I'm not going to ask you all to just go around and share. What I would ask is if you would like to, you can raise your hand or unmute yourself and tell us about your organization a little bit and what services you provide. You're also welcome to do that in the chat. So I'm gonna pause now. Feel free to raise your hand, unmute yourself, or put the information in the chat, and I'll read some of them from the chat as they come in too. I see one hand up. Hannah, feel free to unmute yourself and speak.
Yeah, hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Hannah Itani from Amman. It is a charitable organization at the Arab American Cultural Center. It was founded in 2016. And the main mission of Amman is to help the already housed people from becoming homeless. So this is the main mission, especially the refugees, the immigrants, and the newcomers. But we do everything else because we customize our service. Like you're talking about the food distribution, we customize their needs. If it is health, if it is buying books for universities, if it is purchasing a car, buying their car insurance, teaching them how to drive, many other functions. So this is what we do.
Thank you so much, Hannah. Thank you for coming and sharing that. A couple from the chat. The Health Trust provides Meals on Wheels, Asian fusion, vegetarian, Italian, American options, plus groceries for low-income residents living with HIV or AIDS. Martha's Kitchen assists with food security through hot meals, emergency meals, food rescue, food storage, groceries, and supporting anyone in need. Does anyone else want to share anything about their organization before we hop into a poll question?
I have someone in the room with me and we're sharing a computer, so I'll pop her up.
Yeah, hi, so my name is Ganesh Fatima. Although you see me as mute, but I'm on
I guess you
both
could talk.
computers here now, on Marsha's as well as mine. So just wanted to talk about our organization, ICNA Relief. We are here in downtown San Jose, much like Amman. We also provide households with culturally appropriate food and support a lot of resettlement efforts going on with the refugees also here. Basically, I just wanted to point out that one of our efforts, I don't know if it's disaster relief. It could, yeah, it's disaster relief because it's before disaster relief. We try to provide people with the tools to be ready. And so like recently, just before the storm started, we had planned out, we gave out to the homeless around 1,000 winter care kits, which included ponchos and blankets and a lot of thermal wear and stuff, so that I mean they would be able to survive the season, hopefully. and we've been able to distribute all of them. We also provide food during, like last year, after the floods happened, a lot of the homeless got displaced because most of their items were flooded away. We provided them with food and kits and any extra support that we are able to get our hands on and we can help them with. So yeah, so just wanted to let you know that I mean, prevention and then cure. That's what we do.
Thank you so much for that. Renata, you have your hand up.
Yeah, hi everybody. So I'm just going to speak on behalf of the Evergreen Islamic Center. He's going to be joining later, but this is actually a faith-based institution in San Jose. It's a mosque where they have kind of like a food pantry that's accessible every Thursday. He puts some groceries for families who are in need. And there's a donation box right by the door where people can drop in, funds to help support that. And they're currently working on having an actual storage room, which, families can almost go in like a grocery store and shop and get those groceries in big bulk. So that's kind of one of the initiatives that I was able to discover. And he'll be joining us later, hopefully.
Thank you so much for that. And Marcia, I think you had someone else who wanted to share.
Hi, everybody. Araceli Gonzalez from Catholic Charities. We have several sites, whether they're at school sites or parish. Most of our parish distributions are wraparound services, where we're providing services, I guess, kind of depending on the season. So if it's flu shots, we provide flu shots. Right now, we have the wraparound services where we're doing immigration services plus tax services. So people are coming and either getting, with the support of Martha's Kitchen, we actually have warm meals, grocery distributions, drive-throughs, legal services. We're going to be bringing a new mobile medical unit in July to be able to provide more services out in different communities and going out to where the families need it the most. And we have, I believe, close to 27 sites that we're at for Catholic Charities, whether if it's a school on a monthly basis or a family resource center. And then we have weekly and bi-weekly distributions where we're serving anywhere from 5,000 to 7,000 families on a weekly basis.
Thank you so much for sharing. A few from the chat. We have, and Robin, I see your hand up. I'm going to read these and then I'll unmute you or ask you to unmute so you can share as well. Casey Hill, the food systems manager, leading the implementation of County of Santa Clara Food System Work Plan, which she put the link above. So definitely take a look at that. It's very interesting. It was some of the information I shared earlier. Her role is new with the county as of December 2023, and she looks forward to learning more from all of us. And then going down, Tabitha Gonzalez, thank you for sharing, Catholic Charities of Santa Clara. She gave some information aside from free grocery distribution via drive-through or market style. There's plenty of other wonderful things they're doing. Sunnyvale Community Services since 1970 serve the low-income population in Sunnyvale and Aliso with weekly groceries, an unhoused self-select pantry, home delivery for groceries, school supplies, financial assistance, case management, and wraparound services. And Maysoon de Fela, sorry if I pronounced that wrong, member of Cadre Immigrant Functions team. So thank you all for putting that in the chat. Robin, if you'd like to unmute yourself and speak.
Thank you so much. I just want to quickly introduce myself. My name is Robin Cole. I am with Cal OES Coastal Region Response, and I represent Santa Clara and San Benito counties. I support them with pretty much all things during blue skies and times of disasters and emergencies. So I do work closely with the Santa Clara County Office of Emergency Management, and I also, on our end, work closely with all of our directorates, including the Cal OES Voluntary Agency Liaison. So I am here to learn more about cadre as well as capabilities within the operational area, also any gaps and unmet needs as I support the operational area during any upcoming events, which we have one coming soon. So we've been on many calls for the weather systems that are upcoming. And so anything I could do to support, please feel free to reach out to me. I will put my information in the chat.
Thank you so much, Robin. So now we're gonna do a couple quick poll questions. If you can't use the poll for any reason, feel free to put the information in the chat, but hopefully you guys can all see and use this. So the first question that we have, and I've made the poll questions pretty short. Are you involved with Cadre Food Providers function team as of right now? And this is really just to grasp how many of you are currently working with us and how many we need to further engage. I think we need a lot of further engagement to really flesh this out, but yeah, please go ahead and answer that poll and I'll go ahead and stop it in a minute or two, let you guys do that.
Can you guys see the results? Okay, yeah, so what's it say? Yes, 41% yes. 41% yes, and 79 no, which is kind of why we wanted to do this. Absolutely. Okay, thank you for that. And I don't know why it's not showing on my end. That is so strange. One other question, and exactly what Marcia said, that's exactly why we're doing this. How many of you have a disaster mission? So this is your kind of goal for your organization related to disasters. Just a yes or no question.
Leave it up for another 10 seconds and then go ahead and share the results. You could read me the results again. I don't know why it's not showing on my end. Marcia?
69 yes and 31 no.
Okay, that's great. That means that there's more readiness and there's not, but we need to get that to 100%. That is definitely something we are always happy to help you with too. So feel free to reach out. Disaster readiness is definitely a goal of ours. So something that hopefully we can flesh out through these meetings and through one-on-one discussions with you.
And I'll add too that we did find some lessons learned, not during COVID, but prior to that, that some of the disaster mission statements did not broaden the ability for you to provide services to the whole community. And so just if your intent is to help everybody, make sure that the disaster mission says that so that you it's just so that reimbursement and things will happen. So make sure that the mission is exactly what you want it to be.
And drawing on exactly that, I kind of want to flesh that out a little with you guys. Please do, again, feel free to raise your hand, unmute yourself, or put it in the chat. If you do have a disaster mission, and I kind of lumped capabilities to kind of expand on that mission. So we have our mission, but then from that mission, what are the number of meals to number of locations for how many days? If I do delivery, how far can I deliver to? And the reason I'm putting this, you may not know it, but it is to make you think about that and definitely start gathering that information if you don't have it. But again, yeah, if you can either raise your hand or put it in the chat if you have it on hand. And if you don't, that's okay. Definitely go back with your organization and walk through that and make sure that's something that you have and you feel comfortable with so that you're more disaster ready. Yeah, I see Kamis. If you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and speak, you're welcome to.
I'm going to use Marcia's mic again. So we have been actually, we have the numbers. We, Ignore Relief, we distribute homeless meals, hot meals twice a month, almost 600 meals twice a month. So that's like 1,200 meals per month to the homeless. So, and definitely we are going to San Francisco, Santa Cruz, Oakland, Milpitas, and Fremont. And definitely, I think if needed, we are able to extend our reach, maybe all the way to Brentwood or I want to say Antioch. It's not that far further from Brentwood either. So hopefully we'll be able to do that as well. Haven't tried it yet, but I think we would be, yeah.
Thank you for sharing, Hannah.
Yeah, I want to ask Kaniz, do you work with Rihanna?
Okay.
Kaniz,
Yes, we do.
do you work with Rihanna?
I do, yes. Rihanna.
Okay, good.
Kentucky, yeah.
Okay, so I don't have Kentucky. What?
Her husband, Tucky.
Oh,
Rihanna.
okay. Sorry. Yeah, I thought Kentucky. Okay, so I don't have to say anything because we collaborate together for food distribution.
Exactly. I mean, we all need partners, right, to extend our efforts. So, and they're wonderful partners.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you guys for that. Does anyone else want to share anything before we hop on to the next slide?
I can share something interesting. Can I? Okay. During Ramadan, most of you know about Ramadan. We do have food boxes that we distribute, but we give them non-perishable, high quality items like the olive oil, the good quality dates, the baklava, the halva, the things they want, but they cannot afford. So that's what we do during Ramadan, twice, for hundreds of people.
That is wonderful to know. And that definitely is one of the missing pieces to this, is making sure that we are meeting everyone's cultural needs. So thank you so much for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Anyone else want to share anything on their disaster missions before we hop on to discussing challenges and capabilities?
Hi, this is Anil.
Hi.
Hi. So our organization is Seva International, and we do community service in very wide variety of areas. I am looking for the guidelines for disaster recovery readiness or in that area. Currently, we have capability if needed, but we do not do on a regular basis serving the food or anything. But if needed, we have the capability to do that. We can cook for maybe 1,000 people, not a problem. So I have some facilities to do that. So I'm not sure where I can start, but at least I'm learning from the other people who are doing on regular basis. But we are not capable of doing on regular basis because ours is all voluntary organization, but we can pull on the disaster as needed. So I'm trying to understand what are all required, what are the guidelines. Suppose we need to have a facility to host few people in case of disaster. What are those things required to do it, right? And then the food, we always have it because it's in a temple. They do distribute prasad, they call it, like, on every day or every week to hundreds of people. But we can use that facility for accommodating any kind of disaster. So that's what I'm looking for. Like, we also get a lot of donations like sleeping bags or anything we want, we can get it. And we can accommodate, but what are those guidelines? That's what I'm looking for I did talk to Marsha the other day, and she said to attend this meeting. So I just thought, I'll attend and learn more from other people who are already doing it.
Absolutely. And thank you for sharing that. So that is one of the goals of this meeting, is to start that discussion. And the hope of this is that this meeting starts the discussion, but obviously doesn't finish it. And some of the things that can be done to ensure that you guys are able to expand those services when needed are MOUs, which are memorandums of understanding with other organizations, being part of any given plan that may be developed, which kind of gives us exactly those guidelines that you're talking about on how we can coordinate with each other. And then as we develop those plans, as MOUs and agreements are made between organizations and as a region, we'll be able to do trainings and exercises and things along that line. So that's some of the options of how we can flesh this team out to best meet those needs. Now, exactly how that's going to look is going to be up to us as a group to decide.
Yeah, and during the COVID, we distributed it twice a week. I think it might be from the farms. We used to get 4 or 5 trucks, and a lot of charities. We used to distribute from Milpitas. So they have taken. We did throughout the COVID all the 2 years, and recently we stopped because that need is not there anymore. And I personally, I used to work with every year I used to distribute the blankets, raising funds from my friends and family every year. I did for 3 years. 2 years we did the blanket drive. And 1 year we did the socks, beanies, gloves, that drive, and 1,000 is minimum. Those we distributed almost 4,000 sets. So yeah, I'm interested to learn more and what others are doing, how we can network with other people who are in the similar lines. Yeah, thank you.
I'd like to say something, sorry, to Anil, and because I'm so glad you could come stay with such a great organization. And I know that you're having the summit on February 10th, where one of the topics, it's a kind of another thing to get organizations together to talk about what they're doing. And Cadre is going to participate in that. And one of the issues is food, one of their topics. So maybe you want to put something in the chat about that summit. Anil, do you have that information handy?
Yes, I do.
Oh, good. Just stick it in the chat in case any of the organizations here today would like to participate in that. And also I'm knowing that Ikna, Kaniz, and you, Sewa, you're both working in Milpitas and Fremont, around that area. I'm just thinking that would be a special focus to make sure that all areas are covered there, because you're in the same area. And if there's a disaster and we have to quickly put out food for a whole lot of people, we want to make sure. I just see your footprint is in the same place. So anyway, that's it. I'm so glad to see everybody today. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. And then I do have some information put in the chat of Vegilution's capability at their farms, 500 farm boxes, fresh veggies sourced through our local food system. Produce is organically grown and received at the farms. There's weekly distributions from their farms at Emma Prush Park in East San Jose. Recipients are asked to pick up boxes, and they have the capability to deliver to homes through partner organizations if needed. Thank you for sharing that. And this information we are gathering, we're trying to fill in all those pieces and kind of fill in those here's my capability versus yours, so that we are able to try to make those connections and make it easier for you all to work together and all of us to work together on food relief. So I'm going to go ahead and let's start talking about this capabilities a little bit more. Okay, so another poll real quick. I'm going to put the question there and then it's going to be in the poll. If you can't use the poll, feel free to put this in the chat. You guys should all see it. Have you previously provided food relief during disasters or emergencies? I know some of you already mentioned yes, but just trying to get a grasp of, out of our entire group, how many have had that experience? Give it another 10 seconds and I'll go ahead and share the results. And Marsha, once I do, if you can just read it out to me, since my side doesn't want to show me results or how many participants are taking it.
Sure.
And I just shared it.
58, yes.
58% yes,
Okay.
42 no.
Okay, so a little over half of you guys do have some experience with this. For those of you who do, we're gonna look to you for information on what you went through. I'm gonna actually ask a few questions coming up about that. And for those of you who don't, we hope that through the others' lived experience, you can be better prepared and ready by learning from it. So kind of fleshing out that question a little, for those of you who have previously provided food relief, I know a couple of you have already kind of brought this up and answered this question, but for those of you who haven't, feel free to raise your hand, put it in the chat, however you'd like to share. If you could tell us a little about that experience. What were those efforts like? What type of disaster was it? I know a lot of us faced the pandemic, but I know that there have been other disasters in the area. So if you want to share anything, please do raise your hand or put it in the chat. Anne, you can go ahead.
Okay. Hello, I'm Ann Heresy with the Red Cross. And Red Cross does provide food relief during disasters, but we do not prepare the food. So we always partner with great organizations like the ones here today to deliver the nutritional needs to the people in our shelters who have been displaced. Or we also invite people from the community to take meals at our shelters. And we, when it's appropriate, we will also deliver hot meals to the neighborhoods. So an example of this was 1 year ago when Martha's Kitchen provided the meals to the Red Cross in San Jose when we opened 2 shelters during the atmospheric rivers in January and in March. And we had 220 people in the shelters. And so the meal, the needed meals were beyond that due to feeding other community members and such. And that was how it was done, through partnering with Martha's Kitchen.
Thank you so much for sharing that example. Does anyone else feel like sharing?
During the pandemic, as I said, we distributed the blankets. So similarly, some of the money was left raised from my friends and family. So there is a couple of Subways. I spoke to them and they gave at a very reasonable price the sandwiches. So because we cannot make it at our place, those sandwiches, because they all have to be licensed and all that at that time. So we distributed almost about 400, 500 sandwiches during that time in like 3 to 4 weeks. A lot of people, they were benefited, and with the blankets, and we used to give one a sandwich also. So it was a nice experience to see happiness in their face in their helpless situations for many people who are on the road and who are living in the jungles and all that. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing, Anil. Ryan, you have your hand raised?
Hey, how's it going? Sorry for my camera being off. I'm a little sick today. So, Yeah, I think as again the Red Cross kind of mentioned, we kind of rapidly deployed depending on the regions we support, whether it was during the floods in Pajaro or the atmospheric rivers. And I would say the biggest key piece of that we kind of took away from that is obviously how pivotal it is to have like a central communications person. Obviously, during times of crisis when multiple people are trying to kind of run that role, it kind of creates chaos. One of the really great things, and I want to say I think it may have been Second Harvest Santa Cruz during the Paro when the levee broke, but it was somebody down there actually took it upon themselves to put together a mass schedule of all the sites, the needs, and then basically each agency went in and actually kind of filled out what they were able to provide. And so that was again just can't stress enough the communication piece, which I know is like, oh, well, of course, but just wanted to touch on that again, especially as an agency who can kind of rapidly deploy meals, it's extremely helpful because obviously once food's kind of heated back up, food safety, all those great things.
Thank you so much, Ryan. And yes, absolutely. That need for coordination, that ability to pull something together quickly like that is essential. It's really definitely needed. And hopefully this group is able to provide something similar in the sense of coordination and providing that kind of one-stop shop hub, and or us merging with other groups who are doing that so we aren't having multiple people communicate with multiple meetings, multiple documents, or whatever it might be, really consolidating those efforts. Kaniz, did you have your hand raised?
Yes, so also wanted to add about the wildfires, although they were not within the Santa Clara County, but definitely, I mean, the Paradise fires and the related fires, they were reaching out to everyone around them. And so I think we were able to help bring in a lot of canned food to the people who were taking refuge in different places like warehouses and stuff. And also we kind of tried to help out the first responders by providing them hot meals once or twice. So yeah, I don't have exact numbers. It was some time back, but definitely I can get that. But that was something that I remember. It was really appreciated. And although we had to get in touch with some of our partners in Sacramento and but it was really worth the effort. And I think yep, thanks.
Thanks so much for sharing. Francie, you have your hand raised?
Yeah, one of the things I was just reminded by, I think, right, it's food waste. It's really a problem in disaster. To me, I've seen so much really good food thrown away just because of logistics and that need to use it within 4 hours after it's been heated. And I'm just hoping that as part of this group, we can work out a way that we avoid as much of that as possible. And I had left a message. I didn't hear back, but I'm going to still try to reach out to them for next time. Is one interesting group was Peninsula Food Runners, and they pick up food from different events or restaurants, grocery stores, and they distribute it to anybody that asks for it. It's really a great group. They can just bring you meals for a meeting you have with clients or something. If you want to feed people while they're waiting in your waiting room to fill in applications or something, they can just deliver. They never know what they're going to have, and it's kind of like hard to book something with that. But they're a very good organization to have a connection to, and they do help avoid a lot of waste because they really move quickly with their volunteers to pick up excess food and take it someplace else that they have already mapped out. So we can check that out later.
Absolutely. Great point and wonderful segue to discussing challenges to disaster food relief. So
The thing that we did is
yeah,
so we went out to Bottle and Watsonville in areas where we actually did this 3 to 4 months after we did collections of actual needs, after we did a couple of case assessments on clients of what they need. We partnered up with Catholic Charities of Monterey. And we did collections here in Santa Clara County, and we're able to do distributions out in areas where there's not so much support. So I know that that was really helpful, because a couple of things that they had mentioned is, yes, when the disaster happens, everybody came out and helped support it. But we went out about 4 to 6 months later, and you could definitely see, now that we knew exactly what the needs were, we actually requested certain needs on what support they actually needed. So that was really helpful.
Thank you so much for sharing. And I do see in the chat, Casey, thank you. She put an organization she recently connected with that matches food surplus generators with food recovery org. So that link is right there. And she does ask, curious to learn whether anyone in the group had experienced working with them. So definitely take a look at that, and feel free to put in the chat or speak. Hopping to challenges. Oh, Anil, did you have something? All right.
You asked a question?
Oh, no, I thought you had a comment.
Oh, I want to share one more thing. Everyone might have heard about the California's biggest disaster, McKinley Fire, near Idaho and California border. It's one of the California's largest fire instance. It burned down like almost 60,000 acres. And there is a few villages, they were all burned down. So from SEVA, we raised some funds, and they contacted us how we can help them. Sorry. And what we did was, they asked for some tools. So we raised some funds for them, and we donated tools worth of around almost $11,000. And they put a tool library there, and the villagers who are the residents of that area, even from far distances, they come, they take a loan of the tools, they go do their work and give back the tools. And there are a couple of gentlemen who are local leaders. They have come forward to host that tool library, and they've been doing fantastic job. So that's one more way we helped in the disaster, not like food, but with the tools. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. All right, so let's talk a little about challenges to disaster food relief. I'm going to go over a few, and then just like we did a second ago, I'll give you guys an opportunity to share your own challenges or expand on some of the ones I mentioned. And then we'll start talking about a little more about those capabilities and how they can help bridge those gaps and help address those challenges. So talking about challenges to disaster food relief, some issues that can be experienced, obviously every disaster is a little different, and you're going to experience these differently within your organization for each type of disaster, for each magnitude of whatever given disaster it may be. Supply chain disruptions may be an issue, including production, transportation, and distribution. When we talk about that, we talk about, as far as production, like contamination of food. You could see that during fires because of the smoke, because of floodings, maybe an agricultural emergency. As far as transportation, earthquakes, fires can impact highways, can impact roads, same thing with flooding. Distribution, power outages during disasters or damages to stores can create closures. In line with that, communication breakdown, so cell towers not working, internet disruptions may create issues where communicating may be a little more difficult. There are some solutions to that, like ham radios, but that definitely can impact both the communication between a given organization and other organizations, but also between organizations and their staff and organizations and their customers. Shortages and rationing also kind of tie into the supply chain disruptions. So shortages or rationing of food, of fuel, of staff. Staff may be impacted. They may not be able to come in and help. Food may be damaged. Roads may be blocked so that food can't get to where it needs to go, or the communication's broken down so it can't get to where it needs to go. Power outages can create fuel issues because you can't pump gas without power. So that can be an issue as well. Lack of cooking and storage facilities. Again, a lot of it tied to infrastructural damage or power outages that make it hard. The place you're relying on for cooking prep or the refrigeration you're relying on, if you don't have a generator that's in a facility that's generator ready and the generator's battery operated and there or fuel operated and there's enough fuel, you may have issues with any of that. As just an example, increases in demand as people become displaced, as we start seeing issues in the home with, say, a power outage where the food goes bad or flooding that contaminates food. Another one would be security concerns as far as food distribution, food storage, but also generally in man-made disasters, you tend to see more like civil unrest. If there's war or a civil issue, you may see security concerns there more likely than in a natural disaster. We tend not to see those unless that disaster is prolonged and people start getting desperate for food. There's severe increases in food insecurity, psychological stress of the disaster, both for the staff, the organization, and for the people. That can create issues both with the functioning of the organization, but on the alternative end of that, people who are overly stressed may have eating issues, they may face malnutrition, they may lose their appetite, so that can be an issue. The issues of meeting cultural or dietary needs, for the entire community is another big one. And Marcia just put something in the chat, Faith in Food, a guide to religious dietary requirements. It's a nice little PDF that provides some information about that. If you know of other resources, please do share them. The more we're aware of the cultural and dietary needs of our community, the better able we are to meet them. That's not to say that we can always stand up culturally and dietary appropriate meals right away, but the quicker we can connect to those resources, the more we're aware of those needs, the better able we are to be able to share that information and make sure we're prepared. So and Marcia just mentioned as well, we'll send all the links out in one document at the end as well. So you'll have that also. Kenny's mentioned coordination efforts as a big challenge in getting timely response from partner agencies. Hopefully this group can help meet some of that need, but definitely a huge issue. So thank you for sharing that. Red tape and bureaucracy is another one. It can create delays in receiving assistance and coordination. It can also just make things a little less effective and efficient, as is issues with funding and trying to get the funds to be able to manage increased needs and all of the hurdles that may come with any given disaster. Aside from all of that, I know that's a lot. Thank you, Ryan, and we'll send some email after this so you can get the full scope of everything that we talked about today, along with that recording that will be available on the website. So any other challenges that you guys can think of? I'm going to ask directly a little more about the challenges you have faced and how you've overcome them a little later on, but just any topics that I'm missing here as far as things that you have experienced. Francie, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think one of the things that I've encountered for many years is organizations that, in a disaster, you just see a big need and spontaneously ramp up and start feeding people or doing something, and not being prepared to keep the records that would allow you to get reimbursed for that or possibly get your supplies replenished. And I think one of the good things that we might be able to share in future meetings is a lesson on just how to set up to be ready to do that, so the system is all there and people can just start immediately collecting whatever information they need. And they can also discuss if that's an obstacle, if people don't want to give their names or share information, we can we can address those things ahead of time instead of just, you know, having some people opt out of eating. So they don't have to share their information. That's it.
Thank you so much. Any other challenges you guys have in your head that you can think of you want to share?
No, I was going to share this kind of similar or in the same vein, perhaps as what Francie shared. Also, the readiness to receive funding. So, I mean, it's funding. Yes, is the funding there, but also some of the, our organizations, across the county are smaller or haven't, managed, say, government, grants. So I think that's, I've seen that be a challenge as well, to be able to respond to receiving funding and dispersing it, in the community as well.
Excellent points. Thank you, Casey and Fancy, for bringing those up.
Religious.
And I'll just tie into what Francie said, that the thing that we are not good at doing is tracking volunteer hours. And those volunteer hours can help the government jurisdictions. It can significantly help reduce the cost of the disaster because they get credit for volunteer hours worked. So we do have a form that is FEMA compliant. We just need to try to embed it in everyone's work so that when you're doing disaster work, we can share that information with the county and give back to them.
You know, I'd like to add one more thing on the funding issue. Right now, there's an open RFP from Listos and Cal OES that is really, appears to me, I went to the webinar, something really good for the agencies serving vulnerable populations, that right now you could look at that grant. I put the link in the chat, and maybe Robin knows more about this, I don't know, but it's grants that seem to be allowing people to prepare for climate change in a way that normally we couldn't, like buying equipment or getting solar panels on your building, or, just to prepare for what's coming, to expand your capacity quickly. And of course, it's good for any disaster, but climate change too. So the link is in the chat, and I don't know, Robin, do you know anything about that more than I,
So grants are definitely not my area of expertise at all. And so we do have a really large grants team that if you do need for me to connect you with someone that can further assist with details and information, I'm happy to coordinate that. Otherwise, I can look for more information to send to you. So if you want to talk with me offline or contact me, I did drop my email into the chat. I'd be happy to contact someone on my end and find out further information for you.
Any other thoughts on this before we talk a little bit about work that's been done previously that has been successful in disaster food relief? And then I'll open it up for you guys to share some of your experiences with challenges and how you overcame them or how you hope to overcome them. All right, so hopping forward, just want to share some highlights. In the Kincaid fire in 2019, Sonoma Family Meal coordinated with local restaurants and emergency meal providers to provide over 500,000 meals to people impacted by the fire. The meals were culturally appropriate and met the needs of the people with dietary restrictions. That was just a good example of kind of how a group can work on that larger scale to assist the community. Looking locally, in the wake of COVID-19, Second Harvest Food Bank distributed over 150 million meals to people in need in both Santa Clara and San Mateo counties. They coordinated their effort with over 1,000 community partners, such as food banks, soup kitchens, and homeless shelters. So these are just a couple of the ways that we can work together to effectively and efficiently support the community. And when we talk about the community, the whole community and all of the needs of the community. So hopping forward, I'm going to ask a few questions, open it up for discussion again so that we can kind of get your guys' takes on what you've experienced in a little more depth and any innovations or capabilities that you leaned on to help you during disaster relief. So the first question I do have are, what challenges has your organization personally faced during or after a disaster, and how you address these? So again, as we've been doing, if you want to raise your hand, if you want to put it in the chat, either way works, but please do if you have anything that you want to share. I know a few of you did share a little about this before, but if you have anything else, please do speak now or raise your hand.
Hi, Francie. I posted that information. So if anyone is interested to join the summit on February 10th, they're free to join.
Great.
Araceli from Catholic Charities. I know food insecurity has always been out there, but I feel that COVID just kind of gave it its own voice, where other people were actually now noticing it. And it definitely allowed more people to till this day, we still have new people that are coming to our sites. They never heard of, being able to go to grocery distribution. There's a lot of people that we're still serving the same amount of people that we were at the peak of COVID. What we're kind of doing a survey on is why people are coming to our numbers are still extremely high. And it looks like people, with all the inflation of everything that's going on, this is what's helping them pay their rent. Definitely it's tying into that. A couple challenges is, when COVID was full and active, we had support with funding, and now the reduce of funding, and then volunteers as well. And one thing that we have engaged with, we have great volunteers that really help support and they want to do more. But there's still those group of volunteers that we still, looking for in large capacity. So I believe funding, volunteers, and getting more food, actually getting less food for more money. I think that's the biggest challenge right now that we're seeing a lot.
Thank you for sharing. And that's a really great point. Disasters impacts aren't just during the disaster. They are long drawn out, especially for those larger, more impactful disasters. We can see those impacts for years and years, but the attention goes away pretty quickly and the funding goes away before generally all of the needs have been met. Disasters expand our needs. They expand our social problems. They magnify them. But that relief is fleeting. So having some sustainable ways to try to meet those needs and acknowledging that recovery doesn't always provide the same funding, resources, and attention as the relief efforts, even though it's as needed, if not more, during the recovery process. Looking back, I know about half of you have dealt with disaster food relief in some way, shape, or form, a little over half. Are there any resources or strategies that could have been helpful to overcome challenges? Is there anything you wish you had during a disaster or you hope to have in the next disaster to help bridge some challenges and gaps? And again, feel free to raise your hand, unmute yourself, put it in the chat, any way works.
Araceli says better communication tools.
Absolutely.
Or a better network, I guess, with redundant ways to communicate.
Well, one challenge I had when we were distributing the blankets or the food is, where are these people to distribute? So in the past, I used to go to the Coleman. There used to be a huge number of people who were homeless, who were living there. And what I felt is, when we go there, is there any meeting point where like it is distributed across like maybe 5 acres or 10 acres of land there. And if you have to go and distribute to each and every home, call them, and it could be raining, whatever it is, right? So I felt, if we whoever is distributing the food right now currently, if they make a point, hey, at this time, 10-15 minutes here and there, we come and give the food every week, and you all assemble there. So those kind of things, if we can do it, then people, they know, okay, someone is going to come, they're going to give something at this time, this location for that area. So that way the food or any material can be distributed effectively, efficiently, and people also know, oh, if I have some issue, where I need to go. That is the biggest challenge. Like in the COVID time, all my friends are saying, how the heck you're going there to distribute these blankets in all those dunches and all. But, I took it as a challenge and I went and gave it. That's a different story. But I felt a lot of times, if we have a meeting point where we can go and give it, it will be much, much easier for both the sides, for them to take and for us to distribute. And also the volume also can be known. Hey, this will be very useful. I need to take this much food or this much quantity of blankets or things, so that I know exactly how much I distribute. There's no shortage or over also. Like, we were talking before about the wastage of the food, right? And food is a perishable. Once we make it, we have to distribute it. That is one biggest challenge. And if we take over food, then it's waste. If we take under food, then it's also not enough, and we feel bad that people are hungry and we could not feed them. That's one challenge I felt in these kind of disasters or doing anything distribution. And the other thing is, like, when the other people who are distributing the food, was there any preference about vegetarian and non-vegetarian? Or like, some cultures, they eat only certain kind of foods, other cultures, they don't eat that kind of food. But vegetarian is a common for anyone, right? There's nothing, no process, nothing to be done. So when we give the food, the vegetarian food to the people, will they appreciate or not? That's one question I always had. But no, whenever we distributed, yes, I did distribute all the vegetarian food, not any meat or anything, because we cannot cook that kind of food at our the big facility. But yes, I do have some friends in the restaurants where they can definitely cook some non-vegetarian food and all. But during those disasters time, we need to also see the bulk capacity than, the 100, 200 people capacity. If you look in 1,000 capacity, that will be more effective. And, the kitchens, I know they're all vegetarian. So that's one question I have.
Thank you for that. And absolutely that coordination, definitely, and that communication, potentially, like Ryan said, developing something along the lines of some shareable document where we can do that. That's a definite potential to help address that gap, but we can continue brainstorming and trying to identify ways for us to have that communication. Kenny's, I see your hand up, but let me just, right before you start, I just, in Monterey County, when I was working as an emergency services planner there, something that was really effective was exactly what you guys are mentioning. It wasn't for food, it was for AFN overall, but at one point we had a daily meeting. Then it moved to a weekly meeting, and then it got expanded. Now it's like every other month, as far as I'm aware, they're still doing it. But basically during COVID and during the wildfires in Monterey County, this group was meeting once or twice a day. And they were literally just, hey, I have this and I need that. And the people in charge of it were documenting it all, and they had a shareable document for it. So there are ways that we can definitely approach this to help meet those needs. Kenise, you can go ahead now. Your hand's raised.
So yeah, thank you for sharing that. Actually, that was my the point that I was going to come to. And we had earlier mentioned, like when we started, you asked for the disaster mission or the vision statement. So I think that is like very, very important for everyone to have, because what happens is usually when there's a disaster, everybody just starts jumping in, and then they're lost because they don't know exactly what they're doing or where they fit in. I mean, it's a big puzzle, and we all are like small pieces. So there's a big need for having like a project manager, like you said, developing that, taking that initiative, putting everyone together, and then having those pieces come together organically. Also developing protocols, so and going over those protocols before a disaster hits us. So it's kind of preparedness, disaster preparedness. All our us agencies, we know what the protocol is when we're coming together. So and definitely this will touch all the issues that we were talking about. Who, where, when, what, how all these things will be addressed beforehand. Everybody knows what they're expecting. One more thing I would like to add to this is with the project management, with the protocols, having someone who is checking continuously on funds availability, because as a partner organization, when we're in the field, when we're doing all these other things, we kind of lose focus. But funding is really important. So having someone over there who is in charge of the project management, also looking out for us agencies and telling, hey, this funding is available right now, why don't you apply for it, or let me help you get everything ready, or something like that. Yeah. So these points are, I think they're the challenges, and would love to address them for the next, whenever we need them.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. Francie, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say that over the years, Cadre has given a really great workshop on Disaster 101. We have a kind of a template for a plan for agencies to help them make a disaster mission, and it includes things like assigning different job titles to people for the disaster, so immediately your staff would know how their job title switched in their duties, and they could jump right in. And I'm sure that Marcia can add that link to the list of links that we're going to send out to you, because that is really just so easy to fill in, and it'll really trigger the different thoughts, steps you have to take as an agency to switch quickly into disaster mode. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you. Anil, go ahead.
I have one more question too. I think Kenise, I understand, I heard you guys distribute like 600 meals a week. So where do you guys go and distribute? Do you distribute to some shelters, or do you distribute to the people on the roadside? I was just wondering.
Right. So we usually distribute them directly to the homeless. There's just a couple of shelters that we reach out to, but most of the time it's directly. And again, we have volunteers and partners who actually take these items from us. I've been to some of them. Santa Cruz, there's a big encampment. We go there. San Francisco, there's a huge population. They know that they're expecting us. They see our truck. They start forming lines. Oakland, also the same thing. I think Milpitas, it's sometimes, I mean, depending on how many people show up, sometimes we distribute it directly to them, and sometimes we end up giving the rest of it to the shelter.
Oh, nice. Okay. So I was just trying to see where are those locations. So, when we want to do something, we can also go there and do it.
Locations, even in San Jose, Fremont, it's just showing up there and then, letting the crowd know that, we're going to be here. They start expecting you. The line keeps on growing. Believe me, I mean, there's always people who need food, hot meals, and they really appreciate it.
So
And-
if those locations can be shared, Marsha and the team, I think they'll be really helpful for other organizations or other people. If they want to do something, they can go in there too. That'll be really good. Yeah, thank you, Ganesh.
Yeah, this is Marcia, and we do want to have a separate meeting with anyone that supports the unhoused. And actually, during the cold weather meeting was the first, we're going to do a breakout room during that meeting because we don't know who's going where. We don't have a good sense of where all the encampments are, but the groups do. So
Yeah.
we're trying to share that information across and make sure that we're not leaving someone out, or, if you have safety information you want to share with other teams, and can we create a schedule where every single day everybody's getting served? Because, I mean, I don't know if everything's on Monday or everything's on Wednesday. So, we're going to map it out and see if there are any gaps and try to assist. The other thing that, as we were talking about, restaurants that are providing meals, we need to work with the restaurants to make sure they're resilient enough to continue to do that in the disaster, or we're going to lose capability. So we need to make a list of our friends and have a meeting with the friends of the restaurant friends that we have. See if we can grow that, because there's a ton of capability there too.
Yeah, I have a restaurant who they do for some Christian churches. They supply them regularly some trays of food at a very nominal price. If there is something requirement for that, I can also help with other restaurants, especially the Indian food. If someone is in need, or we can, like Indian, Pakistani, or those kind of food, I can definitely help too. With the resources. Yeah,
That's great.
yeah. We can talk about it, and once we share, we can also add that restaurant there. Yep, sure, definitely.
And building
very
off
helpful.
those comments, when I was working in Monterey County, we did not have the time or capacity to successfully do it, but we had started trying to start conversations with the state and with local restaurants on the ability to take CalFresh SNAP benefits during disasters. There's disaster CalFresh, so that expands and the restrictions are reduced during a federally declared disaster. So what we were trying to do is trying to get restaurants to opt into that while working with the state who could kind of facilitate that process. Because then people who are getting SNAP benefits would basically get an increase during disasters and be able to use it for war meals. And at the same time, some people who wouldn't even qualify for SNAP, including some immigrant populations, may be able to get just the disaster CalFresh. So that's definitely another opportunity for a way that we can partner. I just wanted to throw that out too. Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and ask a quick poll question, and this is on your disaster preparedness. So, are you currently prepared to continue or expand services if a major disaster occurred today? When you answer this question, consider all types of disasters that we are at risk of. And if you are not fully aware of all the disasters we are at risk of, I highly, highly recommend. There's a few really good resources for that. The local and county emergency plans generally speak, especially if they have hazard mitigation plans, but they'll also allude to it in their emergency operations plan. Cal OES also has hazard mapping where you can put your location and see some of those major disasters, like are you on an earthquake fault or in a 100-year floodplain? So take a second. Go ahead and answer that. I'm going to give you guys about 10 more seconds to answer.
This time it showed up on my screen.
Oh, nice. Mine is still not showing It's not letting me see how many have taken it or anything like that. But I'm going to go ahead and end the poll and share my results. Marcia, if you can
Okay,
tell us.
56% yes, 0 no, 33% partially, and 11% I don't know.
Okay.
So we can help with that too.
Exactly. So,
And we do read all of the government plans
Mhm.
to look for gaps and look for things that we, better ways to coordinate and bring that information to you.
Absolutely. And largely for those of you who said partially or I don't know, can you tell me why not or why it's partially? If you don't know and you just not need to do a little more research, perfectly fine, but just trying to see exactly how we can help that partially get to a yes. And again, feel free to raise your hand or put it in the chat, and it's okay if you don't want to share, but definitely want to support you guys in this and want to support your disaster readiness. So any information we have, we can help.
Okay.
Yeah. Hi, Hannah.
Okay, yeah. Partially, I answered partially because we are a very efficient community. So we can mobilize a large number of committee members in case of disaster through our communication links. And we never tried it. We haven't been in a major disaster in Santa Clara County other than the flood that was taking care in San Jose and fire in Santa Cruz. But in Santa Clara County, I don't know, remind me, was there any big disaster that that needed mobilizing efforts? I don't remember, but we are very efficient. This is what I'm saying. We are very efficient when it's needed. And I have a couple of comments regarding the food distribution. One time somebody called me, and it happened to me that I answered the phone. He said, please, 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 I need to eat right now or I think I'm going to die. So he lived in Santa Clara. I drove there to see him and he was waiting on the driveway like I went to a concentration camp. He was waiting there with his girlfriend. They've been eating candy that was left from his son, from his wife before, for 2 weeks. So I entered, I saw the cupboards, nothing in them, the refrigerator, nothing in it. Right away, I did somebody who is housed, but is living in such a disastrous personal emergency, how can they get help? I mean, he's not homeless. We go to like ECNA goes to homeless people, homeless community, but someone like that, how can they be served? Is there like a 911 number for somebody like that? I mean, for whatever number is there in Santa Clara County? The other thing, one time it happened with an Azerbaijani family that the receiving organization stopped taking care of them. And there were 5 little kids. And I always, when they ask for food, I open the refrigerator. And with 5 little kids, it was 0, nothing. I was amazed right away. I went to an international food in Santa Clara and I let her buy whatever she wants. She couldn't believe it, that she can buy the items that she knows how to cook. So, yeah, the language was a barrier. I mean, so the language for Azerbaijanis, I was communicating with them by sign, and one of the boys speaks a little bit of English. So for those people, how the service goes, I don't know. These are my 2 cents.
So one thing Francie did put in the chat, and I'll expand on it too, it's helpful to educate immigrants and people who do not speak English in advance, trying to find someone in advance to be able to communicate with them in multiple languages and let them know a few things specifically for disaster. Every disaster relief facility, so whether it's a temporary evacuation point or it's the shelter, has to legally provide translation in the language the person speaks. So that is a legal obligation by any public shelter, any evacuation or emergency facility. They would have to go and ask at the front. I know they would ask in their language, and then at that point, that organization would connect with interpreters to be able to support. I know in Monterey County, we would pull a lot from like the hospitals, and public health helped a lot with that translation personally, and I was working for county government at the time. With that said, during a day-to-day, Second Harvest has a multilingual food hotline. May I just put that in the chat? So that may be a really, really good place to look. I also know 211, United Way 211, their call center provides 170 plus languages. So at the very minimum, they can point them in the direction of somebody, of an organization that can provide that, because they provide it 24/7 in 170 languages. Maya, if you could put that hotline into the chat, if you have it, that would be really, really wonderful, just so that we all have that as a resource. And then again, 211 is always a resource for anything. That's not just food, that's sheltering, that's pretty much any community or social service you can think of. They're basically the Google of phone. So they provide 24/7, 170 plus languages. Their call line the hub is in Ventura County, but they serve all of California. So I know they serve nationally too, but I'm not 100% the processes outside of California. I'm pretty familiar with their processes here. So definitely those would be two resources that may be able to help.
Thank you. This is great. 211.
Can I ask Maya, so can you do all languages, Maya?
Yeah, we have staff that cover the main, 4 languages spoken in Santa Clara and San Mateo counties. So Mandarin, Vietnamese, Spanish, and English. And we have the capacity to tap on other people if there's a language that is not included in those. So we have that option.
Okay, but if they call you, there's not like what Hannah did. She immediately got in her car and took the food. You don't have that ability, right?
So we do have a small home delivery program that was started up in 2020 during COVID. We are, seeing what the necessities are for this program now. But that is an option too. If it's somebody that absolutely cannot get food any other way, they can be enrolled in our home delivery program, where we have volunteers and staff sometimes making home deliveries for us.
Okay, that's awesome. And I'm wondering, I don't think we have any 211 on the call, but I'm wondering of the, I know they have lists of food resources, but in how many of them could immediately provide a need like that? So I think we can create a network too, if somebody gets a call.
Yeah, we usually do about 4 to 6 emergency deliveries every day.
Catholic Charities, did you hear that? They do 4 to 6 emergency deliveries every day.
So if a person calls Second Harvest, even same day, sometimes we can still get it to them. But usually what they try to do is, if they truly cannot come, we get every day, Monday through Friday, we do about 4. It's not every once in a while we'll get a large number, which is 10, but we usually are able to do within that 24 hours.
Okay, so we do have some abilities here. We just need a better communication network. So yeah, thanks, Araceli.
Excuse me.
Oh.
Maybe it should be a requirement that all receiving organizations who receive refugees to know about these programs and provide it to their recipients. Really, it is, I mean, if I tell you the little kids, when they saw the truck coming with the food, in the driveway, they started eating, opening the bags and eating the whatever they find. It's just the lady helping me, she started to cry because we wanted to take the food inside and we were not able to. So if they share it with the receiving organizations, that would be great help.
Yeah, that's good. And Hannah, when you mentioned earlier about being able to mobilize community members, community volunteers, how prepared are they for an earthquake? Because if they won't be available if they're not prepared.
I
And that's,
know.
you know, we rely on all those volunteers, but if we don't encourage them to understand the impacts, they're not going to be there for us because they're going to be scared and damaged. So anything we can do to help. That's why we created videos, so that you could share information. And if we need to translate it into more languages, we can, or we can just help you create your own materials and make sure that you have everything that you need. But we really need to get the community ready, because they are going to be who we want to help us, but they may not be able to.
Can you please send me the information to share it on our website?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Nancy, you had your hand up.
Yes, me again, sorry. This is so great. I've been working for a couple of years on language access for Cadre, trying to expand beyond the 5 or 6 languages that most agencies have, and to know how to quickly get some of the lesser used languages, help people know what's available and that they can have it. And I'm wondering, is the the language hotline, is that a free service that we could just publish that phone number and it's available to anybody, or is it just for organizations, or does it cost money?
Is that for the Second Harvest hotline, you mean?
No, I think the Monterey County.
Oh,
somebody-
211. So 211 is United Way's call center. It is national in California. Some counties have developed MOUs to have them provide disaster relief information, but in general, even without an MOU, they provide basic community and social service information. So the scope of their work is this: 24/7, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 170 plus languages. With that said, it is like Google. So they're not going to be able to tell you this organization's all of their services in depth, but what they are going to be able to tell you is this organization does provide food on Mondays from 5 to 2 because that's what the website says, and here's their phone number and here's the location. So if it's not like accessible for the person to find themselves on Google, on a website, something like that, they won't be able to share that information. With that said, we can definitely collect this information and share it with them so that they are better able to provide that information. So yeah.
I'm thinking more like, we're in a homeless camp and we encounter someone we don't understand at all and they desperately have something to tell us or ask for. I've been trying to figure out, would it work, the smartphone translation apps, if we just had that. Has anybody got experience in using those when you go out in the field and just, I see that they have a lot of languages I haven't had the chance to practice, but I think Cadre could try to develop some kind of guidelines on that so that we could all quickly communicate with anybody, or we would know how to do that, because I think it's, there's hundreds of thousands of people in the county that have limited English and don't speak one of the 5 languages, and they just are going to be without a clue if we don't find a way to connect with them ahead of time.
So my understanding from 211, they wouldn't be able to provide free interpreting services. It would just be like referring someone to 211 to call. That's all I know about it to be able to speak on it. Joey, you have your hand up. You're welcome to unmute and speak.
Yes, hi, I'm a little late. I had a meeting. Yes, I've heard about it, that Google or app translation. I do have little experience with that one. In our community, when we have some especially different languages, most of the experience I've had with the Spanish and Chinese, that you can actually speak and it will translate in it actually basically is translate in a text message. It doesn't repeat in an audio, but it translate into the English to any language you set it up. So it does work pretty good. I have not seen any issue communicating with the people who cannot speak English, but they do understand a little bit English. They can write, I mean, the written one, but it works pretty well. I have not seen any issue translating using the app.
If anybody has experience with that, please put it in the chat or a link or something. And please contact me also if you have had experience with language access issues for your clients. If there's been obstacles for them that you couldn't work your way around, please contact
Okay, yes,
me. I'm collecting information.
yes, I'll look for that one and I'll send you the information.
Thank you so much. My email's in the chat.
Okay.
You all. So I do want to one last discussion slide, and then I know we're running kind of short on time, and then we'll just really briefly discuss next steps and end with a 3 quick question poll that's going to help us make future meetings and future collaboration efforts to be most useful to you all. I would like, I was going to do this as a poll question, but I would actually like you guys to put it in the chat, or you're welcome to speak as well. If you could list any top communication networks you use, so this is considering a disaster is happening and you would like some information for collaboration purposes. If there's any that you use, if there's any you would like to use or would be open to using for disaster relief coordination, would you prefer a website? Would you prefer an email blast type of list? Regular meetings, Facebook, WhatsApp, Google Chat, others. I just put a few for example, but really just how would be most comfortable for you to communicate with other organizations for disaster relief efforts. Okay, I'm gonna just briefly read some of the stuff that's being put in the chat. What's Up would be great for quick follow-ups and questions. Cadre website definitely is a great resource that we are currently utilizing. Facebook, I see a few on What's Up, so that's definitely something we should consider getting up and going. What's Up what we use to coordinate with community members when I worked at Vegelution. Thank you, Casey, for that mention. So okay, cool. And I see a couple more in here. Slack is another one. Here's the link to Second Harvest Food Locator tool. Thank you for sharing that. Okay. And another note on What's Up, it's also free and available to everyone with phone and Wi-Fi. Okay.
Exactly. I mean, this is most of the refugees, they don't have a cell number. They use the WhatsApp. So you cannot call them directly. WhatsApp is their communication. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them.
Okay, cool. So thank you for sharing that. We are just looking for ways to help streamline this. Again, we do use our website, but we'll look into What's Up, and that may be one of the first tasks of the function team in helping foster that communication. One other question, and this one I am going to do a really, really quick poll. Are you open? And I believe that I'm going to get 100. I hope I'm going to get 100 on this, but are you guys open to collaborating with other organizations? So basically, would you be happy to be part of this team so that we can start developing our membership and really start taking some tasks like developing a WhatsApp and other resources that are useful? Thank you for putting the Second Harvest Food hotline in there. I'm just going to let this run for like another 5 seconds and I'm going to go ahead and stop it. Marcia, if you can, once I share, tell me the results.
It says 100% so far.
Perfect. That's what I was looking for. Okay, great. Sorry, what was that?
Sorry, we're getting excited here and starting to plan ahead. It's a,
So I'm gonna actually skip this next question just because you guys have brought this up several times, and I do want to make that our highlight of a upcoming meeting as well. But before I kind of bypass that, if there's any partnership or collaboration that you have not mentioned that you think this group really needs to know, if you can please, just again for that interest of time, put in the chat or raise your hand and quickly tell us. If there's anything you haven't mentioned already on any major partnerships that we have currently in the county for food disaster relief. All right. So let's talk about next steps. The food providers function team meetings are going to be one of the ways that we are able to make this coordination work. That is, with that said, Cadre is happy to help provide this foundation and support. We cannot run it by ourselves because this shouldn't be someone running it by themselves. We do need a group of leadership. We do need to, as a group, develop dates, develop tasks, and I'm going to get into exactly how we're going to start doing that very, very shortly. If anyone is missing from this conversation, please put their information in the chat. Marcia, if you can put my information in the chat, feel free to reach out to me directly. Feel free to forward them anything. Feel free to tell us in here, and we're going to have a poll right at the end. If we're missing anyone, we should be inviting here. We have 4,000 plus organizations, I would presume closer to probably 6, just based on the math of it, who could be a part of this group. If this group is large enough, we can have sections, we can have distribution, we can have cooking facilities, we can have it in any structure that works best for all of us. The goal of this is not to add more work. You all have enough work on your plate. The goal of this is to have more minds working together so that hopefully we are more efficient, if not have slightly less work because we are bouncing off of our own, each other's efforts. So please do put that in the chat. Feel free to reach out. Other ways to collaborate. If we want to do a regional feeding plan, happy to help with that. If any of you want to prepare your volunteers, your staff, your organization better for disasters, we are happy to provide any support, any subject matter expertise, any material that we can support for that. Tabletop exercises are also a great way to help get that cohesion going, like we said, and happy again to help support that. And then our questionnaire that we sent before this meeting, if you have not taken it, this is going to be our first step in getting that network going. Please complete it. The link's here. Marsha's going to put it in the chat. There's the QR code there. This is going to help us get that resource mapping going, helping expand this network and getting this team fully fleshed out so that every person who can be a part of this, who could contribute to it, is able to. With that said, there's going to be a 3-question poll in a second. I'm going to let you guys ask any questions or comments, but please do not exit before I put the 3-question poll. It's literally going to ask you, was this useful for you? What would be most useful for the next meeting, which is so critical because that's how we're going to actually be useful and not waste your time. And then putting your information in any other organization who's missing here, adding their information so we can make sure to loop them in. If you haven't taken it, please take it. We'll send another reminder with the email, but this is going to be our first step to really ensuring that we are collecting all the information we need to. So with that, before I go ahead and open that 3-question poll, does anyone have any comments, questions, concerns? So one final highlight about that questionnaire, we already got 10 responses. In those responses, I learned some great information. The Civil Air Force is able to provide safety managers and generators. I wouldn't have even thought about them when we talk about disaster food relief, but they were able to respond and mention that. As was Sunnyvale Community Services, a few different organizations like the Korean Community Services Organization were able to mention being able to provide culturally sensitive meals, which some of you have also mentioned here too. So this is one of the ways we're able to really do this and connect all of those resources. Please take it. All right. with that said, I'm going to go ahead and open that 3-question poll. If you have questions, comments, feel free to speak, put them in the chat, but please take that poll. It's going to help us figure out what exactly we need for the next meeting. And also, anytime you want, contact us. My information's in the chat, Marsha's information. I'm hoping you all have it already anyway, but feel free to put it in the chat, Marsha. We're trying to support you all and trying to provide that structure that will help facilitate strong collaboration and disaster food resilience. So we appreciate your time and thank you all.
Yeah, and if while you're finishing the poll, if we didn't mention it, Cadre is dedicating Luna to this food project. So you can see how much energy she has. And we're very excited that we want the focus to make sure that we have everyone at the table, so that even if there isn't a big if we don't set up a huge structure, at least we have the communication network, so that in a disaster, you'll all be at the table when we tell you what the needs are, what the concerns are, and you can share that too. So thank you, Luna, for taking the lead on this.
Absolutely happy to help.